They've now moved to more sophisticated approaches, which is stealing data and then holding the data to ransom instead. And that's a really big concern for businesses. Well, why it matters is the reputational harm to your business is immense. And in a lot of cases where there is a cyber attack, it's the end of that business. It spells the end of that business, or it does significant damage. I think what businesses are missing is that the biggest threat is the humans. We are the most penetrable when it comes to cyber attacks. So there are cases around the world now where CEOs have joined, a Zoom call. It turns out to be an AI avatar that's doing that. But I think companies need to be really strict about the AIs that they're using now, and an AI acceptable use policy. I think that's an important next step. When it's free, you're the product. You're the product. And that means company IP is going out the door to a free product, and who knows where that's going to pop out later on down the track.
Work is changing. That's not a prediction anymore. It's just Tuesday. And the leaders doing it well aren't the ones with all the answers. They're the ones asking better questions. I'm Dave Kenyon, and this is Evolving Workforce. Today we're talking about something that sits in the intersection of the two biggest conversations in business right now, AI and cybersecurity. And more specifically, what that combination means for leaders who are responsible for keeping their organisations safe. My guest is James Vickery, CEO and founder of Benchmark 365, a Sydney-based IT services company he founded in 2016 after more than a decade running his own managed service provider, I Know IT. James has spent over 20 years in the trenches of business IT, security, cloud and infrastructure. He also is the author of Infinite Scale and has a reputation for cutting through the noise and giving leaders straight answers. James, thanks for joining us on Evolving Workforce.
Great to be here, Dave.
Thanks for getting here. So tell me, from your perspective, what are organisations actually dealing with right now when it comes to AI and cybersecurity risk?
I think some things change and some stay the same. I think that cyber has been an ever-present threat for at least the last decade. I think that what's happened is the surface for cyber attacks has increased dramatically. We're obviously seeing now people are very excited about software. The marketing department's in absolute overdrive, and people are acquiring all sorts of different applications, which means that the surface vector is higher for cyber attacks.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you say surface vector, what you're talking about is the playing field for the cyber crooks out there that are wanting to have a go and exploit it as much as possible. Everyone's buying up software. There's a lot more to play with. Mm-hmm. So is that, my next question you might have already answered, is what's changed in the last few years and why does this moment in time feel different?
Yeah, I think that facet has changed, where we're now seeing a lot more places where a cyber attacker could actually go after a business. And it's not just paid products, it's actually a lot of the free products that we're seeing that businesses are integrating into their workflow as well, which is a bit of a concern. But I think the other side of it is that these threat actors are becoming far more sophisticated at what they do. I can remember really 5 or 6 years ago, it was all about ransomware. That you would get a virus on your computer and suddenly there'd be a ticking time bomb that would say that, if you don't pay this amount of Bitcoin in the next 24 hours, we're going to take your business out. They've now moved to more sophisticated approaches, which is stealing data and then holding the data to ransom instead. And that's a really big concern for businesses. We've obviously seen some very high profile examples of that with, say, Optus and Medibank in recent years as well.
Yeah, nice one. Now let's talk about why this really matters. What is the real risk sitting, and I think you've already touched on this, in terms of technology, data and how it's being managed at the moment?
Yeah, well, why it matters is the reputational harm to your business is immense. And in a lot of cases where there is a cyber attack, it's the end of that business. It spells the end of that business, or it does significant damage to the reputation and the ability for that business to service its customers. So I think at the end of the day, it's like if you have a break and enter in your business and you didn't put any steps in place to stop that from happening, well, all your stock will get stolen, and that could be the death of the business. Well, it's kind of the same these days, except it's with your data.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is it that businesses are really still missing with AI and cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think what businesses are missing is that the biggest threat is the humans. We are the most penetrable when it comes to cyber attacks. Systems can be hardened, anti-malware software, anti-phishing software. those types of things can prevent an attack on a business. But at the end of the day, it's the humans that are sitting in between. And so we're seeing significantly more social engineering. And I'm sure we'll talk about AI today, but AI is playing a really big part in that social engineering of approaching employees of companies and finding ways to, I suppose, exploit them, trick them, even potentially convince them to assist in the process of a cyber attack as well. And so that's a really, really big challenge for organisations.
Well, let's dig in a little bit more to the social engineering. Can you give us an example? And it's not just that I'm going to enter into a competition. It gets more sophisticated than that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does. I think examples that we've seen is often employees might be friendly with one another outside of the workplace. So it's not uncommon for employees to talk to each other on Facebook or on LinkedIn. So who's to say that someone posing as a friend at work doesn't contact you on Facebook or LinkedIn and say, oh, I forgot my password, or, oh, could you just give me your 2FA code so that I can get into the system? I'm really sorry. Or, hey, can I have some money? You know, I'm in an urgent situation. And so we're seeing cases like that where the exploitation is happening outside the workplace, but leveraging the tools from within the workplace to get to them.
That's so clever, so very, very clever. Now, I think one thing that we were talking about off air is I think a CEO came into to a meeting, a Teams meeting or something like that. I think you had an example like that where they asked the team for money, didn't they?
Yeah, so we're getting to this. I mean, obviously, a lot of the audience would have seen just how good AI looks now. You know, there are videos that where the human beings in the video look actually real and they're not. So there are cases around the world now where CEOs have joined, you know, a Zoom call and said, hey, we got to get this bill paid. You know, we got to, there's a change of account details, just got to get it done right now. Here's the information. And the employees believing that it is their CEO, their executive officer telling them to undertake this payment. And it turns out to be a fraudster. It turns out to be an AI avatar that's doing that.
And they've joined a meeting that they weren't necessarily invited to, but they come in and they ask for money for employees and they seem like they are the CEO in person.
Well, I mean, a good bunch of meetings don't have as long as you've got the link, you can join the meeting. And so this is where, you know, there are so many different, we talked about the vectors before, that's a vector, you know, so now we need to be looking at making sure that our Zoom meetings and our Teams meetings have PIN numbers and that are locked down and that people have to verify themselves before joining the call.
That is just incredible. So as AI gets embedded, how do organisations stay in control and where does that generally break down when they try to?
Well, I think AI it's just such a vast topic and people are very excited about it. So it's not uncommon to talk to people and say, I'm in a relationship with ChatGPT, you know, and don't cancel my ChatGPT subscription. I don't want to use the company AI. But I think companies need to be really strict about the AIs that they're using now. And I know that doesn't sound very innovative at all, but I think we have to pick something that we know we can secure. And so things like Microsoft 365 Copilot is probably one of my preferred platforms to work with because it has a lot of the other AI tools in it, such as Claude, such as ChatGPT, but it's secured within the Microsoft environment. So it follows the same permissions and policies that you would expect a human being with that environment to follow. And so I have a preference and lean towards that. I think the risk is when we've got lots of different AI tools out there, now we're starting to distribute company IP all over the place. We may inadvertently upload sensitive information. There may be personally identifiable information. I think this is a really huge risk for specifically for leadership teams and directors to ensure that the data is staying within a walled environment.
Yeah, that's particularly important rather than just manipulating a spreadsheet that has got all the company data on it, but it's just in the public ChatGPT. That could be potentially very damaging.
Some of the biggest data breaches that are happening right now are exactly that, you know, where it's found out 12 months later that, you know, I think there was an example, I think it was the floods up in Lismore, and one of the workers that was working on the remediation of that took the entire database and uploaded it to ChatGPT. So everybody's names, personal details, addresses, phone numbers, and so that constitutes a major data breach in Australia.
Wow. Yeah, of course. And I think that's just sort of answered the next question. But what does this mean for payroll, employee data, compliance? We've got a lot of payroll managers listening, a lot of workforce managers listening. That might be applicable to them.
Yeah, I find it interesting. Businesses that I talk to, whether it's payroll or otherwise, don't have an AI acceptable use policy in place. And I think it's very important to roll one of those out so that people know what the rules are. If you do have a company AI, such as Microsoft Copilot or Gemini, the AI acceptable policy might say you can use this to do your role, but you cannot use any third-party tools. Or if you do use a third-party tool and it's approved, you can't upload sensitive information into those platforms. It fascinates me how many businesses I speak to that have an IT policy, but they don't have an AI acceptable use policy. I think that's an important next step.
Absolutely. Yep. So, James, at Evolving Workforce, we like to play a couple of quick games at the end of the podcast to keep it interesting. The first one's called Humans versus AI. So, what for yourself? The question is, what should humans own with cybersecurity and AI, and what's safe to hand over?
Oh gosh. I think the obvious one, I was actually with an organisation yesterday, we were talking about AI, and I asked the CFO, would you use one of these sort of co-work automation style tools that can actually do parts of your job? And if you did, what we do? He goes, oh, well, every day I have to come in and I have to check the bank balances and I have to check all of this financial information. That was an immediate, like, let's not use the AI to go and log into the bank accounts and look up that information. And so I think, it's having that discussion about what are some things that really do need to remain with humans, and I think it's that. I think it's the handling of sensitive data, unless it's handled within a gardened wall of AI security. I think they're the main things. Yeah, fair enough. Next game, change your mind. So something that you've changed your mind about when it comes to AI and cyber risk that you thought 5 years ago or whatever that is different now. AI, it's almost a two-part question. So I think with AI, where I've changed my mind is that this idea that this is going to take everybody's job. We're just really not seeing that. What we're seeing is amplification. So we're seeing the ability for humans to actually get more done in a day, but we still need that innate humanity. Just like we're having this conversation right now, I think we still want to deal with our own species. I think how that ties into cybersecurity is we still want to deal with our own species. So we're going to need to move to a zero trust style where we need to really verify, are you who you say you are? I can tell because I'm sitting in the room with you right now. But once we start getting into the digital sphere, I think we're going to need more technologies that actually help us identify whether humans are who they say they are. One example of that is email. I think email now is heading to a stage where do you really trust that you got the email from the person that you're expecting? I don't think anybody does anymore. And that's why we're having to check domains and having to check if there's any dodgy links in there. We may move to more trusted platforms. Like when we were setting up to talk about this podcast, we spoke more on LinkedIn than we did on email. And the reason for that is there's a verified trust tick on LinkedIn. And so I think I'm seeing a trend towards that, trust but check.
All right, and our last game, a prediction and a warning. So looking ahead, let's go to the prediction first. 2 to 5 years, what's going to happen in this space?
Most applications that you're used to using day to day are gone. 2 to 5 years. If we're using AI and AI can say process a bunch of data, and then on the other side you would normally open that in Excel, but now there's an AI at the other end that can process the data. Why do we need a product like Excel, for example? I know it's going to be, for people in the payroll industry, I think that's a pretty confronting concept, but I think a lot of the applications that we work with today will actually be eliminated by AI, and we'll have new ways of working with one another.
Wow, so it's going to really just be a revolution.
Yeah, whether it's vibe-coded applications or whether it's just what we only used that application because it was a way of processing data for our human minds. But if AI is processing the data, why do we need the interface?
Wow. There we go. And the warning. What's your one big warning for leaders listening right now?
On the cybersecurity front, for leaders, I do believe that things are going to come thick and fast. Before, it might have been a threat actor or an organisation of threat actors that sat down and thought about sophisticated ways to hack into your business. They now have infinite scale of technology. They have access to tools that can accelerate ways in which they can break into your business. At the end of the day, cybersecurity is a break and enter. They're going to break into your business. And so now you're dealing with organisations that have weapons that are very sophisticated, and business leaders are going to need to pay attention to that and start to put the restrictions in place to prevent a cyber attack.
Which platform should business leaders be using, and how do they organise that? Because everybody uses different platforms, I'm sure, within an organisation.
Yeah, I think if any answer that I give, there'll be someone in the audience say, I don't like that AI, I like that AI instead. So I think the most important thing is picking something that works with your company data. So I'm seeing a lot of organisations where they say, we use ChatGPT. But what does that actually mean? We use ChatGPT. Well, if it's just a one-to-one interaction with ChatGPT and you're copying and pasting emails and Word documents and spreadsheets into it, you haven't integrated AI into your business. You're just having a one-to-one interaction. And frankly, not very efficient to copy and paste data. So I prefer platforms that are fully integrated into where you work. So where are your Word documents or docs, Google Docs? Where are your spreadsheets? Where are your presentations? Where are your conversations happening? And pick the AI that can connect into all of that. My personal preference is Microsoft Copilot. I really think this has moved into pole position in recent months. And the reason for that is, well, first of all, this is Microsoft. So they have the world's largest reach of technology. Every single computer has a Microsoft product on it of some kind. And so Microsoft have really driven forward with this and invited the other AI platforms such as Claude and OpenAI to reside within their platform, within the Copilot platform. And so what I love about that is that we can secure it, so we can make sure that the data stays within the environment, that it actually works with documents that you work with every day. And I feel that you get more momentum when you're working with a platform like that. But at the end of the day, it's about picking something, paying for it. So we're still seeing a lot of free, I'm using, this free tool or that free tool. When it's free, you're the product. You're the product. And that means company IP is going out the door to a free product, and who knows where that's going to pop out later on down the track. So I do think picking maybe one of the bigger, larger mainstream platforms, integrating it and securing it.
So walling it off, making sure that it's your own container.
100%.
That's fascinating. I did note on the front cover of the Australian Financial Review recently, I think it was one of the big leaders of the Commonwealth Bank saying that 2 years ago that tokens wasn't a line item in the budget.
Right.
And now it needs to be, and companies are just spending crazy amounts.
Yeah.
I think there was some quote of some CEO saying, we just said go for it, and they were spending, it was either $500 or $50 million that just blew out.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot. Certainly at the bigger end of town, they've got the budgets to just spend unlimited. And I think at the bigger end of town, what they're doing is getting their people to use the technology, utilizing the tokens, and then sort of that's allowing them to draw a lot more information out about how their people work, so they can utilize that for better productivity and efficiency. But certainly at the smaller end of town, I think people don't realize this is the cheapest AI is ever going to be. I mean, right now, where there's a plethora of tools, like Claude is a phenomenal product, ChatGPT is a phenomenal product. If we think back 3 years ago, none of this stuff was there. And now what it can do, it's never going to be this cheap again. And those tokens are whirring away in the background, but right now that's being funded by venture capital. Once that venture capital calls their chips in, those token expenses are going to get higher.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like all the technologies that we saw before, like Facebook, and
right.
It was really cheap, and there was very cheap advertising and stuff like that, and they've just ramped it up, and your reach has got less and less. And,
right.
James, in this whole sphere, is there something that we haven't covered that we need to know about AI and cybersecurity risk?
I think the most major thing with cybersecurity that we touched on before is that the human element is the risk. Yeah, we can secure computers, we can put endpoint protection that detects if there's anything malicious on the computer, we can put firewalls in place, we can put filters in place that block things, but humans are the ones that have the keys. It's like, they have the keys and the alarm code to the office, and they are the biggest risk. So cyber awareness training, constant cyber awareness training for employees is key.
So it's not just once a year, it's not just once a month, but it's continuous.
I think it's persistent. So I think that we should be training people. We could do this in a virtual way, but training people with some short videos once a month, and also some of those tests. And I don't know if you've seen those where it's an email that looks very legitimate, but there are some telltale signs that it is a illegitimate email. Someone clicks on it, HR gets notified. they can come and talk to that individual and say, hey, stop doing that. Stop clicking on those things.
I was working in a company about 5 years ago, and I think there was the Olympics on, and they said, "Oh, we've got some tickets to the Olympics. The first people in, click on this link, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds great." And I didn't really. And it looked like it was coming from the company that I was working for, and it wasn't. And I got done, and it wasn't. It was just a just a test.
Yes.
But I think more of those, the better.
Yeah, and we're going to see a lot more of those coming from the threat actors themselves using AI. And so our cyber awareness training tools need to be as sophisticated or more sophisticated than the criminals.
Absolutely. Well, James, thank you so much for chatting us today on evolving workforce. It's been a really, really interesting chat. I'm going to have to think about having to say goodbye to Excel and Word because, so I'll prepare myself for that eventuality. I don't mind saying goodbye to PowerPoint though.
No, yeah. I don't mind saying goodbye to email.
Yeah, me too. That can go.
Yeah.
But thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Dave. It's been great. Appreciate it.
See you later. Bye. Evolving Workforce was proudly brought to you by OHI, specialists in workforce management, award interpretation and payroll compliance, delivering new certainty. This podcast was recorded on the land of the Gadigal people. If you enjoyed this podcast, why not send to a friend or a colleague? And remember to hit follow on your podcast player to get every episode as they drop every Wednesday. Thanks for listening. I've been Dave Kenyon, and this is Evolving Workforce.